praying for rain in these days. The question is this a proper place? Because we look at it, if you live in a home or in a development, do you want to see commercial come in to that area? Because granted, it may increase. Now, we look at it from the standpoint from the city of Harrisburg, they've already rezoned this thing because they want that kind of stuff. Why? Because commercial taxes pay more taxes, support their school system. So you sit here and you evaluate that. So the question is this going to be? This area is going to continue to grow, whether we turn this down or whether we approve it, it's going to grow. I mean, it is alive. If you look at the future growth plans of Sioux Falls or Harrisburg, this land is 10 years from now, we won't even recognize it. So consequently, I'm sitting here saying, okay, what's the best use? How do we foster? How do we take in all these considerations? So before I cast my vote for or against, I would like to hear from my fellow commissioners what they have to say, because I'm uncomfortable without just sitting here mute. So what do you think?
I think at some point, you're right. This is gonna be, it's gonna be something. I don't think it's gonna stay agricultural because it's so close to the city of Harrisburg and has been brought up. The city of Harrisburg's already in favor of this. It meets their comprehensive plan. It appears to me that the developer wants to work on the drainage issues with the landowners, and I don't think he has any ill will there. So I'm for it. So those are my 2 cents.
Since it's my motion, I'm reserving, Madam Chair, to speak last if I could.
That's okay.
I'm good with that. Commissioner Aaron's?
Well, I think Mike Bramstedt brought up some interesting comments. He said there's people who want change and there's people who don't want change. But I wouldn't equate people who don't want change with not being successful. Sometimes people don't want change because they're worried that it will harm their property. And here, there's a lack of plans, concrete plans that have been put into effect that can give people the satisfaction they need in order to make change. And the problem we have here is procedurally, the county has to make the decision to rezone, but it's up to an entirely different board as to how the property is going to be governed. And we've asked the city of Harrisburg for 1.5 years, 2 years now to engage in joint jurisdiction, and they haven't done so. And we've talked with them. Toby and I have talked with them about this. I want to support the rezone because we need to get on with economic development and moving forward. The problem is I'm being asked to make a decision that I don't have total control over the consequences. We have to subordinate ourselves to another board. And it's like when I asked Mr. Smink, do you live within the city of Harrisburg? Nope. He can't even vote for the people who are going to make the decision. It's like taxation without representation, right? He's got no influence with those people whatsoever. So the only thing that the people like Mr. Schmink have is to come to this board and say, hey, hold on, guys. I would prefer to make this decision holistically, you know, joint city council meeting with the county commission. Unfortunately, it's just not how the system is set up, and it's wrong. It's wrong for you. It's not fair to you, Mr. Roach, and it's not fair to the people who live out there, and it's not fair to the city. Because we shouldn't be forced to make decisions while wearing handcuffs with a gun to our head. So like I said, if there were more concrete plans, like what Commissioner Schmidt was talking about, of working with the neighbors, and I do think I'm looking at your buildings, they're fantastic. You know, these are not like metal pole barn contractor shops, not at all. Do I think that we could adequately protect the housing division to the east? I do. I don't think that this is necessarily spot zoning, given the fact that it's on the highway. Yeah, I understand it's ag land, but if you're within, if you're between Harrisburg and Sioux Falls today, there is a built-in assumption that ag land is going to be sold, as it is in this case, by the Bramsteads. So it's not as if we need to protect farmers and agricultural development, which I think this commission has done a good job of. Because first of all, we got a willing buyer and a willing seller here. So I don't think it's an issue of having to protect ag land or whatnot. What I'm concerned about is the drainage issue, and what I would like to do is to be able to make this decision in conjunction with the city of Harrisburg. I don't even know if that's possible legally. But if I could wave my magic wand, that's what I would do, because then I could assure that my vote in support of your rezone would protect the downstream landowners and allow you to be able to do development at the same time. And then also, I think what I would probably do is I'd probably build in some landscaping requirements for you guys, given the fact that there is a housing development. You know, normally you don't see commercial development within a mile of a housing. Right, and so I'm talking landscaping like berms, trees, and things like that, not just grass and like little 1-inch willow trees or something like that on the property, which I kind of think is the direction Lincoln County's going. And I think you guys are here in good faith, and you are bending over backwards, but I think the one flawed area we have is this drainage piece. And I don't even know if the drainage concerns voiced by the opponents are as bad as what they say it is. And I don't know if it's going to be as good as what you say it is, right? But we do have an engineer who just got up here and testified that, you know, it's 2 acres of detention. It's going to meter out at about 40 hours in a heavy rainstorm event. So that's pretty good testimony, and hopefully the opponents have listened to that. But so the one piece that I want to get fixed is, where is the water going to go? How are we going to do it? It's going to be in a pipe. Does you need a permit for the pipe? If we could fix that, I could vote for you hands down today. No problem.
Thank you, Commissioner Aaron's. Commissioner Gibbon, any last word?
I agree. The only thing constant in life is change. And, you know, these are changing times for a number of things. However, I do feel the frustration also as an agricultural producer of farming by a nearby metropolitan area of my father-in-law's property. Drainage is an issue, and it's very frustrating. And I know tiling is helping with many drainage issues and so on and so forth. I guess the concern I have is that our planning and zoning basically voted 0-5 on this, and I just really question if we're far enough along yet in this process right now, today, to possibly support this.
Thank you.
I'll try to keep it brief, Madam Chair.
Please.
It probably won't happen, though. I want to thank everyone that's came here today. This is awesome, actually, to have people come forth and speak what's on their mind, because rarely do we get to hear this. Mr. Schmink, known you a long time. You know I farm. You know I feel the same frustration. I don't know exactly how you're enthusiastic you are about change or not, but it's happened over your and my lifetime, and it will continue to do so. So how do we try to prepare and do the best we can? We try to see by our mistakes how we can do things better. Mr. Roach, I think you've done amazing so far. We're almost there to try to mend the avenue between both the ag sector, which is where the change is happening, and the development side that's coming from Sioux Falls, T, and Harrisburg. I'm actually going to ask the board to consider a motion to table so we can maybe get a little bit farther as I move on. And Madam Chair, I do apologize, but I do have to keep going. I'll
Been at
apologize.
it for over an hour, so why stop you now?
So we're almost there, but one of the things that really frustrates you is what Commissioner Aaron's alluded to is that this is an area that we get to decide what the land gets to be used for, but we don't get to decide how to do it. And that's extremely frustrating. And it's not the only area. So our options are not to do anything within this area of municipalities or try to mend this error that we have. I hope Commissioner Aaron's and I can work together, and because we both are adamant about this being an issue. I sat on the commission with Commissioner Schmidt when we did joint jurisdiction with the city of Sioux Falls. It's not perfect, but I think it's helped move us forward. I hope we can do that with the other communities, and I think we have to refine some things with the joint jurisdiction with the city of Sioux Falls. But this is what I'm going to say to those areas that are in opposition to this. The area is going to change, and I don't know that I would want it to be in the control of anybody else at this point, because I believe that this party is trying to do the best that he can. But that being said, what I don't like is that it's such a small track. I actually prefer larger tracks because then we can see a larger picture. We look at this and it falls under the term spot zoning. If you're going to address, Madam Chair would have to recognize you. Madam Chair would have to recognize you first. So we're getting through a lot of this, but I am going to motion to table this for 1 month so that there might be an opportunity to get some of the drainage issues that have been raised at least addressed a little more clearly with the neighbors in the vicinity. So I'll end with that motion to table for 1 month.
Second, if we're even able to recognize that motion.
No, actually, tabling.
Okay.
I think it's a privilege motion,
Yeah.
isn't it? So, I
Yes.
don't know. I'll second the motion then.
Any further discussion?
I have one.
Go ahead.
While in 1 month, we like, commissioners, they all like to talk too much. I'd like to tell Commissioner Aaron's, when we talk about the frustration we have with our municipalities, amen. It would be nice to do this, and I hope you all understand that. But we won't in 1 month resolve the issue with the city of Harrisburg on who controls what goes on. We won't. If we vote in favor of this in 1 month and you've addressed the drainage issues, and Norm, you got some kind of magic formula to get the water out of your ground, okay, but we still have not addressed the issue where Harrisburg is ultimately going to say what this thing is all about. And again, repeat, you got no representation. So consequently, we can do the best we can. So in 1 month, I hope you get this resolved, because I'm ready to vote on that issue and take care of that. But I will support your motion, Commissioner Poppins, for table this for 1 month. And I'm glad you made the motion, because I've been accused of this many times myself.
And
Madam Chair?
I concur with Commissioner Schmidt, because nothing is going to change with the rezone request. We don't control anything. We don't have jurisdiction over the drainage. Tabling it, in my view, makes no sense whatsoever.
Oh,
So,
I wasn't going to comment. Now I do have to. But Commissioner, I yield to Commissioner Gibbon first.
Yes, what direction are we giving them? We're saying in a month, but
This is what I'll address, if I may, Mr.
Okay.
Commissioner. So, and again, we don't have control with the city of Harrisburg. We will not resolve what's going to be. Well, what they can do is they held a meeting. They can address it with the neighbors without the municipality, and figure it out.
I
So,
I don't see why we need to hold up our vote, though. They can do that anyway, and they're gonna need to do it.
if we've approve it prior to them resolving any issues drainage-wise with the neighbors, then we don't have a choice at that point, and the city completely has. Once we've approved it or denied it, it's done, so.
I'm gonna let Mr. Roach speak one more time, and then we're gonna vote
Okay.
on this motion
Thank
to
you, Madam
table,
Chair.
which I will be voting no on.
I am with Commissioner Landine. I am fully open, and I know Dan, my business partner, is fully open with working with Norm. We already have full approval with Myron going through his property, so with Myron Bramstead, there is zero issue with drainage and working with us. And I know farmers have a word that a handshake is a deal, and that's why we had so many people speak to mine and Dan's integrity. This is not something that we're going to walk away from. So you have my word on record that I'm willing to, and Dan is willing to work with Norman moving forward should you vote today and not table it, because I just don't foresee 30 days, 45 days, 60 days helping this situation at all, knowing that Harrisburg has the end-all be-all on our drainage plan.
Thank you. Well, we have a motion on the table to table this, so I suppose, Sean, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Aaron's,
Yes.
Commissioner Gibbon,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins.
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
No.
Commissioner Landine.
No. Motion carries. It's tabled. For 1 month, when would we be having?
That'd be June 22nd meeting.
June 22nd meeting?
Yep.
I don't think you need to bring us anything unless you've got some more information about drainage. I'm not gonna take any more testimony, in favor or against. This was our public hearing.
Thank you for coming. It's a process. Madam
So-
Chair, I just want to tell the engineer that I have no doubt that they have the best engineering course at SDSU. My son went there. After that, it falls off.
I've spoken, Madam Chair, a little bit about the fact that my daughter is going there, so I have to give them a little credit.
My husband's an engineer that graduated from there.
So there we go. We do believe that they can do some mathematics.
Well, they're not in Augustana, let's
Yeah.
face it.
All right,
We're having fun with it.
we're
Thank
moving
you.
on. We're moving
Thank you,
on.
gentlemen. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone, for coming. June 22nd, we're gonna make a decision on this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. It's a great deal.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Matt.
Thanks, Matt. We'll get it figured out.
Hey, thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Hey, you went the extra mile. Thank you. Norm, thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
How you doing?
None
All
like-
right.
None like emptying a room, Madam Chair.
All right. I think we have somebody here to talk about our master drainage plan.
He looks familiar.
Have we got this done yet?
Toby, are you gonna tee this up, or? No, I think that teed it up. Well, I think you probably did. I think everybody's had an opportunity to look at the drainage plan, so,
Yes.
Ready?
Yes.
All right.
After that, yes, I am. Go ahead.
Seems to be a current topic. Well, here's the plan. It's got a good thump factor if you drop it. I'm Kent Torvey with Wank Associates out of Minneapolis. Our company was purchased by a company called Stantec, so our name will change over the next year or two. And I've been out here for 2 years, and we were under contract to work on a master drainage plan. And we are at the point of adoption, and this is a big deal. First one that is authorized under state statute. First one for the county. Yes, you are authorized under state statute to manage drainage, and you meet as a drainage board. So the purpose of the plan then is once you have a plan, then you can get more in the game of development reviews, which you just heard about. So I will breeze through this fairly quickly. I know I've been in front of you a lot, and so today I'll just focus on the plan itself and the structure if any of the citizens beam it up on the website. So again, why did we do a plan? You just heard it, changing landscape. And I've just covered all three of those bullets, so I won't do it again. We'll get moving here. What I always remind you is that this was built from the ground up. We didn't come out and say, here's a plan and how do you fit? We came out and heard your citizens and said, let's build a plan. We also have a technical committee, so engineers, public city staff can sit around the table, and during the day, we could bounce things off on a technical basis. You've seen this. This is our three-legged stool. We're on the left leg, process and planning. And a balanced drainage management requires three things. So here's the table of contents, and for the first year, we worked on items 1 through 4. So that was 2019. 2020, we kicked off and we got into the data. It's a good data set. We used a lot of other people's data and implementation, doing capital projects. So in there, 19 was 1 through 4. 20, we went hard on data and COVID hits, but it's in front of us in 2021. So the priority issues, and there were a lot of words from the residents, and we kind of did a word cloud, and we would bring in a lot of words into these 6 issues. For example, a clogged culvert, we put it under erosion or maintenance. So you might hear different words regarding drainage. They're covered in here. So this is, again, the last edition was chapter 5 and data. And I enjoy data, and it helps that your plan, your process is backed up by data. If anybody has a question on why did we use this or that in a review, we can go back to this. And I like that it's not our data. You can see the different alphabet soup up there. There's a lot of good science out there, so let's use it. And a slide you've seen before is, as we heard about this from people, we have seen the 10-year average was up there. 100 years worth of data, and the last 10 years was significantly higher. So here's where we sit. Who manages it? What do we do now? We have floodplain ordinance, and you were just through number 2 bullet, and then we have the feds and state. So why do we do a plan? And you've heard this before, but I'll say it again, maybe there's some citizens, because water doesn't care. That's my saying. And it goes where it wants to, it'll go downhill, and it crosses properties and cities' lines. But also in our county, it can be managed different. Maybe every raindrop doesn't matter. Here's a schematic we came up with. I think the one cutting through the circles, you know, that could be a 9 Mile Creek. And the gray is gray. Cities have subdivision authority, we get the drainage. And the gray is gray. We don't have much authority to go in there at the current time. Cities typically manage their own, and we take care of the blue. So we will keep doing what we're doing, and with this plan, we can standardize drainage management based on engineering. And it always brings it down to me a little bit. There's a gentleman up here that owns ground, and the engineer came out and said, there's no more water coming off of here after than before. You can pick engineering numbers to show that, but it does not pass the smell test, and I just think it's not right for county residents or any residents to be told that. And also, so I'm a fan of counties getting in the game. Otherwise, this private citizen has, otherwise it's a civil matter. That one's just personal to me, to hear somebody say that.
I have a question. That brings up a point. We sit up here not being engineers, and engineers come in with data that said they can neutralize the drainage issue. It won't run off any faster, won't run off any slower, there won't be any impact. How are we to decide if that's fact or not? That's been a frustration for me for a long time, because it doesn't make any sense if you have a development and you have rooftops and you have driveways. If you're a residential development, water's gonna run off a heck of a lot faster.
Yeah.
So, from your estimation, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but just a quick caveat.
That's exactly where we want to get, especially in the gray, but we will standardize what can be used. We, the county, will standardize. You can use A, B, or C, but don't try E, F, and G.
Okay.
You can, and you submit, and we send it back. And then we get into staff applicant meetings, and I've been in them, called stuff, killing development, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, okay, but our citizens' experience is we're getting more water from land use changes. And I don't think I'm out on a limb. So that's what we'll do day to day for the next 40 years. Keep that going. Standardize it, and so one city doesn't think another city's getting a break, and you're getting in the game is gonna ruffle some feathers, but you're gonna calm some stuff down over the long term. People will know we are fair or equally unfair, and I don't care how I'm viewed. We're just gonna standardize it. So then we got into chapter 6, and as we get into projects, or the other leg of the stool, implementation helps us do that. It helps to have flooding projects or the topic listed in a plan. If some FEMA money pops up, they say, well, have you thought about this before? You say, yeah, we got it covered in 6, and here's the table, and how about we could take a look at it? So it helps you when you move up the chain. In addition, it gives your citizens, if somebody had a localized drainage problem, we've kind of laid out, we'll approach the county and we'll see if it can fit on our CIP. We're not saying it's gonna get funded, but it gives people a voice, it gives them a way to have their concern heard, but it doesn't automatically say we're gonna engineer it. Get on the list. Education is one of the best. Any opportunity you have to promote, fund, help education while you're in the drainage game, that's one of the best. Probably generational. Let's get the next generation going on why we're in the game.
Kent, just for a second, if I may, Madam
Yep.
Chair, could you elaborate on what projects that we've implemented so far?
So we've just started taking a look at a few projects.
But have we implemented anything? Because I've noticed that we're going through sloughs now that are completely dry. And a year ago, this is levity, sorry folks, that you've done a great job because we have no drainage issues in the county at all right now because it just won't rain, so.
Usually you kick this off, you hit a drought. So
Perfect. Should have done this 3 years
we
ago.
haven't done any
Earlier.
projects. I think you did Spring Creek a few years ago, and that was multi-agency and things like that. So we
Sorry, I
haven't
was
done.
trying to be funny.
We haven't done
very
any
well.
projects.
Nothing new with that.
It failed.
And I just talked about that, letting somebody in the door, gives citizens a chance, townships, cities. We can all tackle things together. Here's what you're going through on a day by day, and this is what's missing right now, is the detention calculations, the hatched area. They're dug down low, and again, the calculations show, see, we have detention, but they're not effective in the spring melt, and when you have wet conditions, anything low is not effective. So we do the calculations, so that detention storage, that hatched area, it's standardized, and The amount of water out of the pipe is what was coming off corn and beans right before that. But you gotta build the bathtub big enough. We are either not building bathtubs now, or the calculations are a little bit cooked, so the bathtub's too small. And we will standardize that. So that's it. I kinda came through quick, but again, I wanna iterate, this is a big thing, to adopt the first drainage plan for your county with what you're facing as far as the economy and land use changes, and that's not going away. So getting in the game, getting in the gray area is a big step. And as I said, there'll be some feathers that are ruffled but that's us as staff's business. The day-to-day business is us. You should not be having to answer technical questions or the fallout of approving something when somebody gave you a presentation that was not accurate. So that's not where you should be. And that's the way it is. We just want to get that off your plate, down into staff and engineering. But you need to start with a plan. You can't start with an ordinance. The plan gives you the right to have an ordinance. So that would be a next process. So I encourage you to get into it. I don't know anything else other than to say to that. It probably put you in an awkward situation with somebody, I'm sure around budget time. You're not, or you're under pressure to keep it tight and keep it low. So this will be a budget item, and we're already in the budget, so we'll keep her going. But I'm a fan of good planning. It lets us standardize tough topics. You standardize your roads, standardize your drainage.
Thank you, Kent.
Okay.
I think this is a good first step in moving toward, helping us make decisions regarding land utilization and being able to rely on the engineers and staff to make recommendations to us that make sense with what the drainage situation is in the county. So I would ask for a motion to adopt the 2021 Master Drainage Plan.
This is a public hearing now.
We are having a public hearing. All right. Well, who would like to speak in favor of it? Who would like to speak against it? Okay, then I'm gonna,
Madam Chair, I move for approval.
thanks. Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Any further discussion or questions? Go ahead. Commissioner Poppins?
Just for clarification, what real teeth does this have, Toby, as far as what developers or land use changes will have to be implemented?
So as was mentioned, this is the framework for the beginning of, this is inning one. I mean, the next phase we're currently starting to work on is an actual ordinance.
Yes,
So
so
we'll establish
where are
the-
we at on that? That's what will have the teeth, is the actual ordinance.
Correct. We have to wait till this is adopted, then we can formally start that process.
Okay, thank you for that
Yep.
clarification.
I think adopting this plan is pretty similar to like when we adopted the transportation master plan. We adopt it, we say it's our plan, but until we actually put it into force and effect, the plan is just a plan. But I think we're required to do it anyway before we can get to the ordinance process. So,
I'm fine. I got a cough.
Anybody else have anything they want to ask or say?
I was just going to comment, Madam Chair, is that this is a lot like goal setting and so forth. I think it's a good idea, and then you base your decisions based on what your goals are and a plan in place. Obviously, you need to start somewhere, and I think this would be very helpful.
Thank you. Sean, do we have a motion to adopt ×2? You want to call the roll?
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks.
Commissioner Aaron's,
yes.
Commissioner Gibbon,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins.
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Landine.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you, Kent.
Kent, thank you.
2-3 years of work, so
Yeah, it
Thank
was
you.
a long time coming.
thank you for letting us proceed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item 3, Julia.
Two items for your consideration this morning. The first is to hire Carter Thompson as a full-time system administrator with the IT department at $25.57 per hour, effective today, the 25th of May.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Sean, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Aaron's,
Yes.
Commissioner Gibbon,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins.
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Landine.
Yes.
And lastly, is the resignation of Don Erickson for the Highway Department effective the 27th of May.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Sean, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Aaron's,
Yes.
Commissioner Gibbon,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins.
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Landine.
Yes.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, could I ask you a question?
Sure.
Could we move up agenda item number 13? Because I think I'm going to have to be leaving here fairly shortly in order to go to court in Sioux Falls.
And
If you're open to that, I'm open to answer Commissioner Poppins' questions or anybody else's for that matter.
I am open to that. And in that, let's go to items 12 and 13 because those are somewhat related to each other if we could. And I'm gonna address item 12, which I'm gonna be really, brief. I'm just gonna read the email that I got, from the Minnehaha County, commissioners. It just says, wanted to follow up on the request for Minnehaha County courtrooms to be used by the Lincoln County courts. A courthouse is a very specialized building with security that is comprised of certified law enforcement officers. In identifying a lease rate, we looked at the cost of maintaining the building along with the annualized cost of security. For reference, the 2020 maintenance, cleaning, and utility expenses of the courthouse was $547,000, $547.59 to be exact. And the annualized cost of security for 2021 is $760,636 for a total cost of $1.307 million. These costs do not include the cost of parking, insurance, or depreciation. Minnehaha County is offering a lease rate of $8,333 a month for an annual rate of $100,000. Terms would be a one-year lease. If the Lincoln County Board of Commissioners is interested in pursuing a lease, please advise and we will draw up a lease. So that is an item that we have on our agenda. There's, nothing has been drawn up yet, but just wanted to gauge the interest of the commission and discuss that a little bit on whether that's something that we're interested in. I know we're getting, some cases have already been mandated to be moved to Minnehaha County, and these monies are a short-term solution, but also a cost-effective solution in the short term, as far as not having to retrofit and fit other spaces with smart court and things of that nature. And obviously, the security's already in place in Sioux Falls, and I believe this is something that our presiding judge is also asking of us to do. So I would just like to know everybody's thoughts on moving forward with that and having our deputy state's attorneys, Mr. Golden, work with the county commission in Sioux Falls to come up with a lease agreement. Commissioner Aaron's, do you have anything you'd like to add about that?
Yeah, nobody ever likes to have their hand forced, but unfortunately, because of the growth and development that we've been talking about here for the last 2 hours this morning, we've got increased demands on our courthouse. And, I think we kind of informally went through the process of trying to figure out how much it would cost to retrofit another courtroom here. And, we just did some back of the envelope math, and the lease rate that we're being quoted here by Minnehaha County is probably fairly competitive with what it would have cost us in order to get a contractor here into the courthouse and take some existing offices and turn them into courtrooms. So it's probably pretty competitive, and yeah, we're going to have to bite the bullet here for a little while, and but I would say we probably move forward. I mean, I would probably also ask Minnehaha County, though, since this wasn't a kind of forced upon us by the judiciary in a way or in a sense, whether or not we can entertain this issue of using the court, or building into the lease agreement the fact that the courtrooms may or may not be used all the time. So for example, it's like if I rented you a house. Well, I'm going to want the lease check every month, right? But what if built into the lease there's a situation where somebody else uses the house every weekend? Well, it would be unfair for me to have to pay for the lease if somebody else was using it. That's kind of how courtroom space works too. This won't be dedicated courtroom space is my guess. It's going to be ad hoc or as needed. And so if there are other cases that are taking place in the courtroom up there, wouldn't be entirely fair for us to have to lease it based on the annualized numbers here. I mean, I understand the logic, but maybe we ought to go back to Minnehaha County and say, yep, conceptually, we can agree upon this, but we also need to take into consideration if there's going to be other Minnehaha County court cases that take place in those courtrooms. Because knowing how courtroom scheduling works, it's chaotic. There's a lot of logistics involved. My hat goes off to the people up there in court admin who do all the scheduling, but my guess is those two courtrooms won't just be set aside for Lincoln County every single day of the week for the next year. So I think maybe out of fairness, we ought to just say, look, there ought to be something built into the lease agreement if others, Minnehaha County is using the courtroom space as well at the same time. And maybe that's the happy medium here. But
And I
yeah.
think that is going to need to be part of the discussions on what those terms look like, as far as, the space that we're going to have and how it's going to be allocated. Commissioner Poppins, did you have anything you wanted to say on that issue?
Yeah, I don't disagree with wanting to do what Commissioner Aaron's as far as negotiating. The unfortunate part is we don't have much to negotiate with. If we renovate space here, it may or may not be empty or used all the time. I applaud you for wanting to do that. What we risk is them retracting the offer, and right now, I don't know that we have any other options to really consider, so.
Anybody else have anything they'd like to add on that issue? All right, so,
Let's call the question.
well, we're not voting right
Oh, we're
now.
not
We don't have a, we don't have a contract.
Did you have a motion?
No,
Oh.
well, I'm thankful the fact that they entertained the idea. They have their courtrooms are under siege as well with limited amount of time.
I think we have to
So I'm
thank
thankful
the
for them.
judge for working, I think,
Wanting to
diligently on.
work with it.
Yeah, so.
They are, and I think this is a very short-term bandage, so that's gonna take us into our next topic, but what I'm gathering is you want us to go ahead and have our,
Get the details.
get the ball rolling and see if we can come up with an agreement that everybody's okay with.
Please, Madam Chair.
So, we'll go on to item 13, which again, I think, item 12 helps segue into that we need to get this going. We need to get a solution, figured out. I think the advisory committee's been very helpful, as far as looking at the issue. And I think what I gathered, at least from the last meeting, was that there is an emergency and that's been identified. So since that emergency's been identified, I think we need to get some findings, and I think we need to get that part, hopefully moving forward to a solution, because I feel like we're already at least a year, if not two, behind the 8 ball on getting the courtrooms that we need. So with that, Commissioner Aaron's.
Yep.
Well, I got both of you here.
Thank you. So where we're at is Commissioner Schmidt and myself just finished up last week approving a survey that will go out to members of the committee, but also to members of the public. And then we communicated what we thought the survey would look like to our Deputy State's Attorney, Bill Golden. And I believe that that survey is going to be sent out to the public here, or sent out to the members of the committee as well as to the public shortly. And in speaking with some members of the Cottington County Commission up there in Watertown, where this issue of courthouse improvements and a jail failed on 3 different votes, the biggest thing that was communicated to me was make sure you get the input of the public before you go into this, so you can use that to craft your proposal moving forward. And then in doing some of the research, you know, I'm talking to county commissioners in South Carolina and Texas and Nebraska, they all gave me the advice moving forward is get on the front end, get the information from your community as to what they want to see, and they suggested doing it through the use of a survey and put it on your website and just put it out to the public and have the public fill out the survey so you can kind of figure out what's going on. One of the county commissioners down in Texas told me they got about 700 to 900 responses to their survey, and then they took the results of that survey to each of the county commissioners, and they went out and held meetings or talks with people in each of their districts using that survey, as well as using the needs assessment. We've done a needs assessment. It's pretty clear. The writing is on the wall. We need more courtroom space. What we don't know yet is how that's going to take place. Remodel, get rid of the old courthouse, put a new one in its place, find a new location, find a location inside of Canton, find a location to the north of this building, find a location to the west or east of this building, maybe a whole new location. I just had somebody call me last week representing Darcy Johnson, offering up potential land here in Canton. So there's all kinds of people who are coming at us making suggestions, and so it's good to hear. It's good to hear that people are invested in the process. But like I said, Commissioner Schmidt and I, we just finished up this survey, and so we want to push that out to the public now and find out what the public has to say about this. So that's where we're at today.
So just a couple of questions, Commissioner Aaron's. So I understand the survey's been done, I haven't seen a copy of it, but what's the turnaround time for getting this all done? Because it sounds like a time-intensive project, and if there's somebody running it, and what's the cost of doing the survey?
There's no cost because it's all internally controlled. We're gonna put it on our website and then send it out to members of the committee. And then it can be just disseminated, you know, by members of the commission, members of the public. We can disseminate it through the media, but it's not like a mailer like you would send to your house.
Okay.
It's not a mailer. We don't put any stamps on it. It gets put on our website, and then we direct people to our website to go fill it out. So it's using all dedicated expenses from here in the courthouse, so it's completely free. I would think the turnaround time on that, I guess it's up to the wishes of the committee and the commission, but we would probably want to, at a minimum, have 30 days of turnaround on that so that we can get a pretty good response from the public.
And when do you think that will be ready to go on the website?
Bill, I'll put you on the spot here.
I have a copy of the survey here. I've been working with IT, and they're gonna go ahead and do a web-based survey, and I think they were working on the questions, and we may have to modify them just a little bit in order to get them to fit into that, so hopefully it'll be done this week. In fact, I think it was done last night, I just need to go talk to them and look at it, so.
All right, and who is gonna be charged with looking at all of these? Let's say we get 700 to 900 of them. I mean, I know we're saying there's no out-of-pocket cost, but there is some cost because we've gotta have somebody go through them, spend the time to go through them, and come up with some kind of a summary. Is that something the advisory committee is gonna do?
Yes.
Okay. All right, very well. Those were the only questions I had about that. And then I did have this on actually as Commissioner Poppins item. So Commissioner Poppins, what, if anything, do you have to add?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and I want to thank Commissioner Schmidt, Commissioner Aaron's, and the committee for working on this. But in light of our discussion on number 12 and the fact that we are growing in a statement or multiple statements from the judge saying that, you know, within 5 years we're going to need 10 courtrooms, and that's highly functioning courtrooms. Unfortunately, we are severely lacking, and I can appreciate trying to be cautious, but we do have to expedite this process a little bit. Commissioner Aaron's, Commissioner Schmidt, if you can, because it doesn't happen overnight, and I yet to hear anything that's going to carry us from today until the year whenever it is completed, whatever that project may or may not be. So in conjunction with the advisory committee, I think that the board should take serious consideration to do a 3-year to 5-year plan of how we develop temporary or whatever may be courtrooms to fill the circuit's needs, because 10 courtrooms doesn't appear overnight. So thank you.
I'll just add to that. I was in court actually with Judge Howman was the judge presiding on the case, and she had mentioned to me that her updated numbers for Lincoln County court cases is actually up 50% from last year. This was when I talked to her. It was probably about a week and a half ago. Anybody else have anything on that agenda item?
And as we make those comments, I'm off to court.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Aaron's. Anybody else have any comments?
Just that, Madam Chair, I do believe that we need to put it on our agenda for the next meeting, that we get the personnel that we need to help us find temporary space, because this is a 1-year offer from Minnehaha County, and it barely buys us the next year, so.
I would, Commissioner Poppins, I would hope that this arrangement for 1 year, I'm sure they're trying to be as cautious as possible, could be renewed, because our options are extremely limited outside of trying to change the existing offices here, which I think is a short-term, very bad solution. The one thing that I think we have to do is decide on a comprehensive plan. We can look at the 10 years down the road, and I agree with you. You know, the numbers are there. I mean, you know, when you talk about population approaching 100,000 in another decade, you're just not the same county you were. You are a metropolitan county. So what should be our basic need? Should we try to build, if we decide we build, is it 2 courtrooms? Is that our immediate need? Or do we build 4 courtrooms and we do like Sanford Hospital, you know, continue to be able to build up and up and up? And those are the things that we don't have a choice. But then you come into the fact that we have to present to the public, okay, what's the cost going to be? How much taxes are going to be incurred by the average household? And to have them understand that we don't have a choice. I mean, we're just not dreaming this up. The court says you will have adequate space, or we will provide that space, and then we pay. So it isn't, you know, the wish list, that'd be too great. We have to provide. And I think the public has to understand that the county, that's just part of the Constitution. And the county has to understand we're gonna do the best we can for the least amount of money we can, so that the support can be generated when you put this to a vote. So,
Madam Chair, Commissioner Schmidt, has there been enough or any discussion that there's any doubt that we need 10 courtrooms that are functioning within 5 years, as the judge has indicated?
I have not talked with Judge Howman on that issue, Mike, so I can't answer that.
Okay, so the
But I
committee
know
hasn't had
She
that.
talked the last time she was here, I think she talked about 8 to 10. And I don't know if the timeline was 5 years or longer. There's members of the committee, 5 to 10 years, I think that was.
My understanding is that it was 10 years, and I mean, even this building that we're sitting in now was built in, what, 2008? And it's already inadequate for our needs, and nobody expected that back in 2008, but here we are with the same type of problem that we had back then, and our court case is up 50% over last year. So, you know, I think we need to look at the long-term picture and build something that maybe is bigger than what we think we need, which obviously didn't happen in 2008, or maybe we thought this was bigger than what we needed, and it would, you know, last long into the future, but it doesn't look like that's the case right now.
You know,
so.
we talk about putting things on our website. So our check to Minnehaha County for jail last month was what? How much was that?
Last month,
Auditor?
I don't know, but I'd say average is
what-
150 to 180, isn't
What was
it?
our bill last week, our last month?
You want me to go pull the claims that you signed?
No, can you give us a ballpark figure? 130, 140,000?
Yeah, I'd say 130 to 180.
Big range.
It just average. It
And that's
depends.
just for renting prisoner space. Okay, all right. I'm done. I'll be quiet.
Really? Okay.
I would like a comment if he'd be willing to offer from our buildings and grounds superintendent, what resources he would need to try to look to create space or find space. If he was told in a week to find 3 spaces for courtrooms outside of this, either in or outside of this building, what resources do you need to work on that? It's not an easy task, I understand, and thank you for commenting, given that you're coming up. Since I didn't tell you I was gonna ask you that ahead of
What
time.
an impossible question.
Ask me a question that I'm not sure what kind of answer I would give you on that. I mean,
Do you need architectural assistance? Do you need space coordinator assistance? What would you need to try to find space or create space?
I mean, it's something I've been, you know, I'm always kind of looking at, but it's, you know, it'd have to take all my direct focus for at least a week probably to resolve that question, you know, and then what happens is I seek out and I find space that's available, and then I have to have input from all of you, so it's hard to say that anything could be accomplished in 1 week.
No, I'm not asking for it to be developed, excuse me, Madam Chair. I'm just asking, you know, personnel-wise or informational-wise, what would you need to have to make these decisions or suggestions? Going back to a different architectural plan, assistance, or a plan, space needs assistant, or something like that? Or can you do it completely on your own?
I mean, I think I could probably do it fairly well on my own with the assistance of Bill, and,
Okay.
you know, I'd reach out to architects for some advice probably, but I think I could probably
Okay.
research it on my own.
Well, and I certainly don't think we can discount the judiciary and what they consider to be adequate.
Right,
Because that's
right.
what the statute requires.
That's where I would have to have Bill's help with it, because, and I know Bill's busy too, so I would definitely need to have somebody on the court side or state's attorney's side that would know the requirements for a courtroom, so.
You also have to have the UJS on board because they provide all of the electronic, the IT, the smart court, and I know that the current judiciary is not interested in spending a lot of money on those, you know, putting a Band-Aid on stuff as far as the cost to the UJS.
Right.
So that would have to be hat in hand with them and something that they would be also willing to spend money on, which right now I don't foresee being in this building.
Basically, John, what I've been trying to ask you is we need to have a plan ready for from now until if and when something actually does get built, that carries us past our current courtrooms, and hopefully Minnehaha County will allow us to extend, because if we're gonna build something, even remodel something, we're not gonna have it done in a year. So we really need to develop something that's carrying us for 3 years, I would think, until something long-term is figured out, so. And unless I'm not aware of it, we don't have that in place right now, do we?
We do not.
Yeah.
Thank you. John, just.
Thanks, John.
I know we're kind of going a little backwards here, but you're standing there and we've been running a while, so do you want to just, touch on items 10 and 11 on the agenda, please?
Let me go ahead and have Wendy come in and the 4-H people then. for
Is she
10.
here?
Yeah, she is, yeah.
Yeah, if you can do that, and then.
Here she comes.
I see her.
I'm gonna go ahead and let Wendy
All right.
fire this off, I guess. If she- we're just gonna go ahead and start on achievement days.
Okay.
Do you want to lead off? Or do you want? Okay.
Good morning.
Morning, Wendy.
We have with us Katie Westra, who's the president of the Lincoln County 4-H Leaders Association,
Welcome.
and then Chad Hazel, who's filling in for his brother Todd on that, and he's also on our Building and Grounds Committee and the foundation. But we just wanted to talk to you about our 2021 Achievement Day plans. We had a leaders meeting last week to just discuss how we would hold the large animal shows with no livestock facilities or water in Lenox. The leaders thought that having the large animal shows in Canton would be the best option this year for safety of the animals, as well as the kids, just to keep everybody in one place. I don't know if you guys want to mention anything else or have questions for us.
That makes sense. I mean, you gotta have it, if you're gonna have it, you gotta have the facilities that, to put
Yep.
the animals and make sure that they're safe and watered and everything, so that makes sense to me.
So are they gonna be showed there, Wendy? Are they gonna be housed there, and then the judging will take place and the sale as well?
Yes, so it would be, the Achievement Day dates are July 25th through July 29th. So that's a Sunday through Thursday. On Sunday afternoon, evening, it'll be check-in the static exhibits in Lenox. Then Monday morning, we would finish check-in for the static exhibits in Lenox and then start our judging of those exhibits during the day. Livestock could start checking in over here from 9 to 1 on Monday. And then they would have their first shows. Monday evening would be dairy, cattle, and goats, and then sheep and goats. And then Tuesday would be poultry and swine. And then Wednesday would be beef, round robin, and the premium sale. And then we would be done in Canton and go back over to Lenox to do rabbits and companion animals. And then a Clover Bud show and tell and our 4-H barbecue.
All right,
Good plan.
great.
And it's our intention to, we'd like to house the animals there and try to put on a fair as much as we can, fair for the kids.
Yeah.
They like that fair experience.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Thank you
Any
for
other
the
questions
update.
for us, or-
Sorry, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
What will it take to get us so we're not bouncing back and forth?
Money.
John?
Money.
Much money? What's the plan?
All right, well, our goal up until probably about a month ago was still to have everything in Lenox, with the hopes of having the show ring built already over there. It became apparent about a month ago that just with between COVID and everything else, and then material shortages for construction materials, it was just no way it could happen. So that's why we went back to the leaders and said, hey, we got to have a solution of how we can conduct Achievement Days one way or another. So yeah, we're at the point with IMEG that I'm hoping they'll have plans that I can hand off to different dirt work people, and we're hoping to get moving as quickly as possible on doing the dirt work. And if that in fact happens, then we'll be looking at moving forward with at least the building of the show ring facility as early as next year. I'm sure you guys have seen with the budget request stuff, I did put a number in for that, even though we don't have full monies for that. But just like everything else in this environment, prices of materials are going up, price of buildings going up, so it's making it a little more difficult for us. So, yes, we need money. We need to have some more support, but I think we're still there, depending on what you, the commission, will allow us, the county, to sponsor as far as part of this, to hopefully have the show ring built by next summer, and
And
maybe
what
more.
And what was the estimated cost of the show ring?
Okay, so, a year and a half ago, when we had roughly estimated the price of it, the show ring itself was gonna be about 98,000. After the, COVID and the building shortages, a couple weeks ago, a ballpark figure was 185,000. So it's increased dramatically.
I know, a sheet of plywood's $54.99 right now. So,
So that's, we were in a position to be able to pay for the show ring as, the fundraising foundation. We were almost there. I mean, so close that we could give the go-ahead, and we knew we'd have the money by the time it was put up. Now, we have to reevaluate a few things and
where are we at? Where are you guys at on raising funds for the show ring?
about 138, I believe.
Well, that's
Give
commendable.
or take a little
yeah.
bit.
And the cost is 188.
185, I think, is what just an estimate from Morton was.
Is that a finished product, or is that just the building materials? Or
That is put up,
that's put up, okay.
yep. And then there's a few infrastructure things as far as water and electricity and some concrete and things that are not in that. That's just for the basic show ring. We figured if we had to for a couple years, we could put some cattle under some tents and some sheep under some tents and make do as best we could, but that's kind of where it is right now.
So we gotta go out and find a couple of people that wanna put their name on the show ring and, make this happen.
Ideally, yes, that would be wonderful.
Okay.
So one thing that came up with the engineer when I was meeting with him, that a number that I was not anticipating, because I did have a number in for the dirt work, but is the utility end of the world of putting the water supply lines in and tanks and whatnot. And that, they're estimating to be a lot more expensive than I ever dreamed, and I was closer to an $80,000 price range.
John, why is that so expensive? Cause I call or the water district as well. Why is it so expensive?
I'm not sure why
The
that number's
lines are
so
there.
high. I mean, there's some of it's, when they're talking utilities, they're talking some of the drainage lines and everything to get the storm water away from the buildings and whatnot. Most of what they're designing is all surface runoff, so there isn't a lot of that, but I'm not sure why that number's that high, other than basing it off of the experts, I guess, you know.
John, is that water from the city of Lenox or South Lincoln rural water?
It would be South Lincoln rural water.
South Lincoln,
But that's, you're talking to multiple different feed lines, and you're also talking, I think in that number is another septic system for the future, we'd want to put that in fairly quickly for the future growth of the shower house, bathrooms for out there at that. So that, that by itself could be $25,000, because if you had to put a mound system in. And we've looked at different options, holding tanks, we've talked about different things. So that number's gonna be variable, but I'm assuming that's a large part of what would make it an $80,000 project.
Okay.
Thank you. Do you wanna do your update?
Yeah, it's been a while since I've done a buildings and grounds update. One of the things as far as courthouse primary here, we did the bat mitigation, and as far as I know, we have not had any bats come in except for one. That bat was hopefully in here hibernating when we did the mitigation, and it just moved down, but I guess that's to be seen. we have not cleaned up anything up there, because obviously, depending on what we do, it's kind of money that we're spending that could be part of a project. But that said, we're looking at this project extending down the road a ways. So do you want me to reach out and see what it would take to get the bat guano cleaned up there? And I think the only way to do it right would be to remove the insulation, and
I think we have an obligation to look at that. Those
I
are
do
my-
have that number in next year's budget, but I would like to see us roll. The issue's gonna become very apparent once we start getting heat indexes at 100 and high humidities, and then the bat guano smell will start showing up in the courthouse again.
I think we have a duty and obligation to the people in those courtrooms to do that.
Okay. So I'll reach out to the three contractors I talked to last year and see what kind of number, and I'll write a spec for doing it the way I'd like to see it done. But otherwise, everything here at the primary courthouse is going pretty well. We've, AC seems to be working pretty well. We are doing, I've got quite a bit of air conditioning improvements written into this year's budget. I'm trying to get at least some of it scheduled here as soon as possible, because of server room doesn't have any redundancy, and we've had our Liebert AC unit go down a couple times in the last month, and it creates a lot of issues for everything, to be honest, because Jake has to really shut down things. So I'm trying to push that project and this communication room across the hallway to try to get those done as soon as possible. But once again, I'm running into a lot of issues with material costs and just getting contractors that are even willing to do it before fall. But so that you'll see some numbers probably coming through for, hopefully here soon to ask for approval. I'll just reach out and try to get 3 bids, and we'll move forward with it that way. As far as the highway building is concerned, that project has also been delayed because of material delays. The fan units are about 2 weeks out, but otherwise, everything else they're hoping will show up today. They're pretty much at a point where they're ready for the new equipment to be installed, but they've done everything that they could probably do up until this point. So that's about where we're at with that. And I was going to lead into the transfer station, but I see that Commissioner Gibbons has something on there for that already, so I don't really have any major updates with that, other than just was curious where we were at with how we want to proceed. And part of that, I have not, we want to, we've surplused all the equipment, but we want to sell off the major equipment like the trucks and everything. But I felt like I should probably not move forward with that until we really know what we're going to do with the property, because if somebody turn around and buys it for transfer station type facility again, they might want the equipment. So I thought it might be kind of silly to sell the equipment, but
Well, since we're on that topic, our agenda item number 6 is the surplus transfer station property. So,
I do have one, I guess.
Yeah, go ahead.
Before we move into that.
Sure.
So another thing, if you guys looked at my budget request for next year, we have the existing property that we've taken in, and the county took over as tax deed out by the airport. If you're familiar with it, it's a house that's on the north end of the airport. I do want to just throw it out there that we're gonna go in there, John Hanson and Tom and I, we're gonna try to get it cleaned up as far as the grass, and make it to where it's not, basically to try to bring it in within, not being a nuisance property. That said, I want you guys to be aware that it's kind of become a dumping ground a little bit. The building's pretty much open and unsecure, and people are throwing mattresses and stuff like that in there. We've got a lot of remnant tires being dumped in there. Now, is this from people occupying space around there? I don't know, but it's going to become a problem to us. We're still in litigation on that, so you're not going over there. Oh. Okay. All right, never mind about that then.
Postpone.
All right. I guess that's it. we could move on to the transfer station then.
Yeah, let's talk about the transfer station. Commissioner Gibbon, you want to tee that up?
Yes, I do. As you realize, we surplus the transfer station a few meetings back. Commissioner Schmidt and I went ahead and had the property appraised. A written appraisal was given to our county auditor in regard to that. I have been approached this past 10 days by someone, a Lincoln County resident, who is interested in that property. He asked me if this property was either for sale or for lease. As you can see right now, we're currently leasing this property right now. But anyway, if the commission is interested at all in finding out either through sealed bids or through either a public auction, what we can get for this property, I know that there is interest in it. And I think that obviously there's probably more than one individual too that might be interested in this. So I guess what my thoughts were that maybe this is something that we should do with a public auction, and that we should possibly, have a reserve in mind of what we would like to get for this property. And so I guess since this is where we're at with it, even though I still continue to get comments and phone calls from those that are wishing that we would bring it back into the budget for next year, I know that the support isn't there, and so maybe this is a time to move this property, and so I guess I would like to move that we put it up for a public auction.
Other commissioners, thoughts?
Was that a motion?
If it's
That
a
will
motion,
be a
I'll
motion.
second.
I'll,
Or you can second.
I don't care, as long as he has a second so we can talk about it.
Well, I second that motion.
So is that property already been surplused? It's already surplused, has it been appraised?
Yep.
We have that done, okay.
You know, the best way to find out what the value of it is to put it up for a public auction. You can always protect the thing so it doesn't sell for, a pittance of what you think it's worth or your assessed value. But you will find out what the public, what it's worth by having a competitive bid.
Do we need to get some idea of cost or proposals on that, on what the fees are gonna be?
For a public auction, we do it,
We're gonna do it here?
that would, our normal public auction,
Well,
yeah.
doesn't the
Alright.
auditor do that on the front step?
And she's ecstatic about doing that.
I can do it. I can tell by the look on her face how ecstatic she is.
Just to throw it out there, we've talked about doing public auctions before, and we found when we sold the highway building, the old highway building, our previous commissioners discussed that the best option was to list it with a realtor instead of public auction. I don't know if that would be a better option, especially if we've already got people that have interest in it.
Did Toby leave?
I guess I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other.
What are you looking for, Mike?
What do we currently have the property zoned as?
I'm sorry, what was your question?
What is the property currently zoned as? Is our zoning correct for the type of facility that, because this has been there, did we ever
Sean,
take
can you
action
pull up the parcel?
to?
I'm looking right now.
I don't know.
We may need
Good
to
question.
clarify the zoning on it, maybe not, so.
Madam Auditor, is it possible to have one of our benevolent auctioneers that are in our Lincoln County just to volunteer their services? Because they certainly come to the 4-H, and not only do they provide, great theater, but I don't know, Wendy, they've always volunteered their services, Westford
But
has.
there's probably a difference between 4-H and selling a property.
Yeah,
I don't think
Well,
that
I got ideas on that too, but I don't dare say anything, but.
I would actually prefer to do an RFP from real estate agents that deal in commercial real estate to take a look at this and present an option versus doing an auction in our steps. The market is ridiculous right now for if this is zoned commercial or light industrial, which it should be based on its previous use. And Sean's gonna tell us.
It is zoned light industrial.
There you go. So I think there'll be significant interest in that, and at the moment, I would prefer, not to say that auctioning is not an adequate way of doing it, but if we're looking at trying to maximize the dollars back to the taxpayers, I do believe using an agent would be the most beneficial, but that's my thought.
What's a realtor take for percentage on selling?
Can I have just a general comment on that, or percentages?
That's what their RFP is for.
Yeah, so, but it'll range from 5 to 6 probably percentage, yeah. But that, again, is part of the RFP.
So does anybody want to amend? You want to amend the motion?
I yield to the two that, if they would prefer to stick with the auction, I'm good with that as well, so. We're gonna stick with the auction.
I'm fine with the auction, but I don't know, do I have a second?
Yeah, you had a second.
Okay.
Yeah,
Wait a second.
yeah, there was a second. So
Can if you have an auction, rather than having it on the front step of the county, why can't we advertise that would be sold at the premises itself? Where you have the auction, where people come and see, they look at the building, they look at the facilities, so it's an auction, a regular auction on site.
I don't think there's any reason why you couldn't.
Would that be okay? Commissioner? Yeah, we do
So
it.
we're gonna put this out for what? RFP for somebody to do the auction, or are we gonna
No,
have our auditor do it?
Can we have the same person that appraised it do the auction?
Yeah.
Or is that a conflict of interest?
Who appraised it?
Westra.
Westra.
I think then we still have to go back to an
But
RFP.
I was gonna say, I think if we're going to hire somebody to do the auctioneer, then we'd have to do the RFP.
Well, that's my point. If we're gonna do it, we're gonna have to do an RFP, whether it's a realtor or an auction house.
It's a piece of property that will need to be advertised properly, whether you do an auctioneer, hired auctioneer, or a real estate agent, to make sure that everyone.
What if we put out RFPs for auctioneers and realtors and seen which option came out better and then decided from that? Cause we don't know. The realtors might do 6%, the auctioneers might do 8%, so.
Right. Commissioners, you made the motions. Do you want to add that or change your motion?
I don't have any problem with that. Do you?
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with that. I think it's a good suggestion.
So,
So thank you, Madam Auditor.
Yes.
Sean, are you clear on what the motion is?
So the motion is to set out RFP for auction or real estate agent for the transfer station land.
For the
Correct.
purpose of selling the transfer.
Correct. All right. Sean, will you go ahead and call the roll, please?
Commissioner Gibbon,
Yes.
Commissioner
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Landine.
Yes. Thank you. Motion carries. We're circling back to item 5. Commissioner Gibbon?
Yes. As you can see, the Marvin Ski Airport Board, which is, I guess, we were assigned, Commissioner Poppins and I, to this at the beginning of the year. And as you can see, on April 13th, an advisory committee was created. We took a look at different areas of the Marvin Ski Airport, keeping in mind, I guess, the people that are involved with the airport, particularly the people that run the airport, those that are business flyers out of it, recreational flyers, in its regard to its location with the city of T, landowners nearby, those in economic development, and of course, those that are hangar tenants. And I guess the thing that we looked at, and it's nice to see that we have a lot of interest of those people in regard to our airport, along with the consultants that we have out of Aberdeen. that these individuals, as you can see, applied to be part of this committee to take a look at our current needs and also our needs in the future. And it looks like we've had several that have sent in letters, which is very encouraging. I think approximately 20. We were hoping to get, I think, one maybe in each particular area. So I think that that is something that has been encouraging. I would encourage that we create this committee, that we do it, and of course, obviously here at the courthouse, here at the commissioner's room, and I think anytime that you can get open discussion, communication with all involved, what direction we need to go, whether it be with hangar space, the renters of hangars and so forth, or if it's expansion or taking a look at the terminal itself, are all positive things. And so I'm very supportive of the track that we're on right now. I guess with that in regard, I guess we could do a couple of things. We could look at the people that applied and select one from each area, or that we could include everybody, which, you know, as we approach the summer season, trying to get everybody involved is not going to be easy anyway. So maybe the more the better, so that we do get possibly a quorum. So anyway, that's where we're at that particular process, and I know we'll need the help with our consultants from Aberdeen as well. But basically, I'm glad that we've had the number of applicants that we have that want to be part of this committee. I guess at this particular time, I don't know, Commissioner Poppins, did you want to add anything or not?
The one aspect, and you and I spoke with it about it the other day, was I did not know that we had a criteria of a landowner that is not a interested party in the airport itself, just general taxpayer. I should say not a landowner necessarily, but from the county to have an outside perspective for the airport.
And that makes sense to me as well. I guess what makes sense on something like this, Commissioner Poppins, you've historically handled the airport things as they arise, and Commissioner Gibbon, can the two of you work together to go through your go through the people that did apply and come up with members that you can agree on appointing?
I'm good with that.
I'm fine with that. Yep.
And then if you want somebody else that's not directly related to the airport, maybe discuss that and come up with a recommendation.
Sure.
Thank
And
you,
I
Madam
think
Chair.
I'm good at I shouldn't say I'm good, but I'm supportive of moving on this, because I think we have a lot of people that are interested in wondering what our next step is, particularly with the hangar and the hangar renter space.
Sure. So I just ask that the two of you meet and come up with an agreed upon list of people for the committee.
Okay,
Very
thank
good.
you.
Thank you. And then we have item 7, lease of county property at the northwest corner of South Main and East 7th Street in Canton. Sherry.
Sorry, the reason that we have this on the agenda is back in March, we extended the DOT land lease. The tenant rents both that place and the corner lot here in Canton, thought they were both getting extended. So what we want to do, or what he would like to have happen, is just extend this one for the corner lot as the same as his other one, which would expire 3/31/2022.
All right. You've heard the request. Anybody want to make a motion on that?
Move for approval, Madam Chair.
And same amount and everything?
Yeah, yep, 90/50
All
a
right.
month.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any discussion? If not, Sean, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Gibbon,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppin,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Landine.
Yes. We had moved item 8 to the bottom of the agenda, so I'm gonna go to item 9, was discussion of regulation of the medical cannabis. Attorney Golden is gonna tee that up for us.
Thank you. We have had we have an initiative for medical marijuana that has passed and is going to go into effect in July. We also have Amendment A that becomes part of the Constitution for recreational marijuana, which currently sits at the Supreme Court, and so we're waiting to see whether or not it's gonna be deemed constitutional or not. The issue that I want to bring in front of the commission is that both of them give you the ability to do some regulations of retail, of manufacturing, of growth, and testing facilities. And so the medical marijuana specifically gives you the ability to do licensing. Amendment A also goes ahead and talks about licensing issues. And so I have put together, and I think I provide to Commissioner Schmidt, a ordinance that has been going around the state and has been worked on for a licensing scheme for marijuana. It's something that's going to wind up being here in the county, one way or another, or up in Sioux Falls. And so need some direction on how you would like to do that. I've also been contacted by Minnehaha County and by Sioux Falls that they have a joint task force that they'd like to put together. I was just emailed and told that they have adopted a joint task force, and they're asking Lincoln County to join into it.
Yes.
So that there could be some cooperation and consistency in what actually gets put in place. So I have a copy of what they had sent down. There's a public copy, but there's.
Are they wanting, like, who are they wanting? Anybody in particular?
Madam Chair,
I agree, Madam Chair should do it.
I have no problem doing it.
I will join you, because I've been in contact with several of the commissioners and several of the city officials, city council people. And I think it's very fundamental that we be part of this, so we have some uniform planning that goes forward, so that we don't, the ordinance that Bill sent to us, if you've read it, is very comprehensive, and I commend him for his efforts on that. I think that's one of the best ones. And just for public disclosure, Bill, I sent that ordinance that you drafted as a copy to Yankton County as well, because they are putting one forward, and so is Union County. And, you know, I got thinking maybe this whole southeast district would have been better off if they would have planned together. So you would have had uniformity in Union, Clay, Yankton, Minnehaha, Lincoln, you know, Turner, and Bonham. But having not have that, I think it's important that we are part of the city and the two counties. So, Madam Chair, I will be happy to join you as a participant.
All right. Is that all you needed?
That is, and just the other is just to give you advice that planning and zoning is going to be bringing an ordinance forward as well. And so we're trying to coordinate between the two. I believe the other jurisdictions are looking at, it's not a moratorium, but putting on so that no permits or licensing will occur until the Department of Health has their regulations out. They've circulated a portion of those regulations, but it's very difficult when we're working within the framework that we have to be within the department's rules, but they haven't adopted them yet. So, and our time frame is July 1st for when this goes into effect. And so there is a concern that there won't be any regulations in place and people will start pulling permits. And then they will be able to go ahead and open up and possibly cultivate marijuana legally in the county.
But
So
the state's requiring a state application, correct?
they requires a state application, and that has to be completed by October 29th.
The application?
Yes.
I mean, they haven't come up with the actual application yet? Is that,
They haven't come up with the rules so they can have an application.
all right.
They're working on that.
But having a facility should, the requirement of the application and state approval should precede county approving something of this nature, in your opinion?
That is going to be ripe for litigation is what my concern is that whether or not we have something in place, if somebody comes in, pulls a permit, opens up retail, or sets up their own operation, and we don't have any regulations on it, because it becomes possible on July 1st, and then there's an argument about grandfathering it in. So
Right.
those are the concerns that the three different entities are talking about. And I don't know that it's not worthwhile starting to talk to T and Harrisburg as well, because they may be prime locations where people want to open up shops as well. So I would ask for action on the joint task force.
I would still move
For,
participation,
For participation.
right,
joining the task force.
yes, and I think we're agreeable to doing that. So you've made your motion. Is there a second? Got a motion and a second. Sean, will you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Gibbon,
No.
Commissioner Poppins,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes,
Commissioner Landine.
Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Bill, were we gonna need an executive session today at all?
Yes.
We are gonna move, Sherry, do you want us to do that first, or do you wanna do your budget discussion first? Do you need to get things set up, or are you ready to roll? Were you planning on staying here for the budget discussion, or do you need to get going? I think we're gonna, let's handle the executive session first, and then we'll handle the budget.
good plan. Good.
Madam Chair, I would move to go in executive session under pending litigation. What are we dealing with? Contracts.
Contracts.
Thank you.
Contracts it is. Do I have a second to go into executive session for
Second.
contracts? Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Sean?
Commissioner Gibbon,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Landine.
Yes, we're in executive session. Come out of executive session.
So move, Madam Chair.
Second.
Thank you, Sean.
Commissioner Gibbon,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins.
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Landine.
Yes. All right. Sherry, budget.
Move for approval.
So we're not going over it.
What? Yeah. Oh.
Oh. So,
I'm gonna start using this gavel pretty soon.
okay, so we're not actually going over the numbers. These are the preliminary, what we've all pulled together. I'm gonna run through how I'm doing it and see what you guys think. We are gonna have to have further budget discussions though, to go over line items. All right, so we went through the timeline and we know that we've got till July 15th to do any opt-outs. September 17th is still my goal for the public hearing. These are the differences. So 2020, we had 20, and this basically is over the general fund. 20,038,793 for 2020. It increased by 3.947% from 20 to 2021. And then you see the three different types per the different COLAs that we put in. This is the change in the general fund cash over the years. You'll notice that in 18 and 19 is the only time that the change in cash was below, and that is because of the airport purchase and the Delaware project. Just timing difference in the Delaware project, not that we spent the money. It was just
Delapre or Delaware? Is it Delaware?
Delaware.
It is Delaware.
Delaware, yeah, the Dendalk.
Yep.
Yep. You had me
For
confused.
the dairy, yeah,
Aha.
for the dairy.
All right, so the approach that I'm taking for the revenue is I'm gonna trend over the last 3 years, what we received in revenue. The only exception is I'm gonna take out the CARES Act money because otherwise it would be over budgeted. So this is kind of what we've done over the past, since 2015. The bottom number is the budget, the top number is the actual, so you can see that Lincoln County's pretty conservative on how they budget. I'm trying to get the numbers to come closer together though. All right, so this is what we've got for general fund revenues overall. For the taxes, charges for goods and service, intergovernmental revenue, miscellaneous revenue, fines and forfeits, and license and permits. So you kind of see the trend that's been going on with this. Right now I've got an increase in general fund revenue of 7.761%. A lot of that comes from the property taxes. I've done a 4.2% budget. That's with the 1.20 CPI, which is set by the state, and doing a 3-year average of 3% of growth. And I think this number is gonna be low. I think we're gonna have more growth, hopefully. This is the general fund property tax statistics. So that just shows you where I got the 3% for the growth. License and permits, you look at the percent increase from 21 to 22 and it looks high, but if you go back over the years, you'll see that it's not out of line to do the budget request of 214,000. At this point, as of May 18th, we are 85% of the budget of 174,600 that we budgeted for 2021. So we are collecting more in license and permits than we have budgeted for previously. I increased the intergovernment number by the 3-year average, so I don't think it's gonna be out of line. A bump up a little bit, but I think we're gonna be all right with that. Fine and forfeitures, if I would have done the 3-year average on that, it would have been 85,100. But with the way it's flexed so much over the years, I just decided to be conservative and do it at 70,000. Miscellaneous revenue. This is the final revenue type. The general fund, I did increase this from last year budget, but I went through the contracts that we have for rents and recorded them at the face value. I did also jump the interest revenue up. I'm pretty confident of the increasing on that. And you'll notice that it is still not trended. We have some significant increases in 2017. We had Spring Creek tributary, where we recouped a lot of our expenditures there that weren't accounted for. And we sold the old highway shop in 2018. That's the significant increases there. So now we're going into the expenditures. The first one is gonna be using the 2.0 COLA, and granted, these numbers are just what the budget, or the departments have requested. Like, I haven't gone through what you guys, I'd rather sit down and talk to you about where we think the commissioner's budget and everything else is going. I did small increases on the commissioner's budget, just so that we'd have the numbers in here and get a general idea of what they're looking at. But overall, the total expenses for the general fund is gonna be $21,749,709 at 2.0. $21,782,129 at 2.5, and $21,835,625 at 3.25. The next one is the next three are gonna then be the preliminary means of finance. So the magic word there at the bottom is cash applied. Cash applied just means that we're taking the money that we currently have in the account and using it to cover the bills that we're saying that we're requesting. So I've used a lot of, like, the $1 million for the highway is what they've used for cash applied over the last few years. Otherwise, the rest of them are just balances that they have in there. Same thing on that one. All right, so this is the fun one. You'll see on top is the projected revenues. That's gonna be the same no matter what we do for the cost of living. Then we do 5% of appropriations. Again, it's gonna be differences with the different amounts of the COLA. And up at top, we just have the step increases. I don't have any numbers in there for the cost of living. But if you come down, then we do, oh, I lied. Up at the top, I do have the cost of living and the step increases included in the total appropriations. So you'll see the differences in there. The next set is the new requests. So we've got new hires that we're requesting, and also new equipment to train and training for the new hires. That brings you down to the additional 5% required for the new, and then this bottom one here is the budget shortfall. I used the recommended cash apply to $5 million. If you look back over the last 3 years, that's lower than what you've had for cash applied. So there's where our budget shortfall is on all the different deals using the recommended cash applied. And that is it.
Leave that one up, would you, Sherry?
I will.
Thank you.
And like I said, I think we can maybe go through and fine tune some of the budget numbers. I don't think they're gonna be significant changes. They possibly could be. You know, the biggest budgets, of course, are gonna be the sheriff, the highway, and building and grounds. So I think you definitely are gonna wanna go through those ones because they've got more project planning and things like that, with the exception of sheriff. He doesn't really have projects, but. And the new hires, they encompass sheriff's office and state's attorney and planning and zoning.
Sherry, if on that bottom line, where we show 2, 2.5, or 3 1/4, how much difference would you say that if you limited that 3 1/4 to 3? Just.
Come on, this is why, this is why we went through this before.
And I could divide, you know,
Yeah,
that
but
0.5% in there.
That's
I mean,
not
I
gonna
look
make
at it
enough
about-
of a difference.
So it's about 30,000, it's insignificant.
It's very insignificant, I mean, but that's why we
That's my
went.
point.
Yeah, okay, well, I thought you were gonna start
No,
doing them by the
no.
quarters, and I'm like, no,
No,
let's
Sherry.
not do that this year.
I mean, I'm looking at trying to figure this out, but it's really very insignificant. When you look at a budget of $20 million plus, you know.
It's It's $56,000.
56?
So the cost of living adjustment, that 2% and 2.5 and 3.25, that also, then does that include the step in the salaries as well then?
Yep.
2.2?
Yep.
So then it's really a 4.2 or a
Well, no, you have to,
4.7 or?
it's a 2% cost of living, and the step is different. They're two totally different things, so, yeah, but yes, it does include, if you qualify for the 2.5% step, then yes, it would include it in there.
Step is in these calculations. Thank you.
Well, if you read the paper lately and you figure out what they're paying for entry-level positions all across South Dakota, salaries are definitely rising.
Can you bring up the chart that had the cash fund and it's over a series of years what it's doing?
Which one are we looking
excess
at?
cash.
Well, I shared with you yesterday, Commissioner Schmidt, I don't think of, in my world too, I don't see any school district in this county that has given staff more than a 3.5% increase.
Then that might change, because all the school districts in this state are getting a lot of money with no restrictions on it. So,
I think they've already settled from what I've talked to.
I don't know. I'm just saying that if the teachers don't get then it's different than us.
I know it's different, but I agree with Commissioner Schmidt that there's a lot of jobs that people are looking for, but at the same time, you know, some of those jobs entail working nights and evenings and weekends and holidays.
Thank you for the report, Sherry.
Sherry, this is very good.
Yes.
Well, thanks.
Let's say that. That's very good, very comprehensive. I like that.
I'm here for you.
You got colors and,
That's all it takes?
no. Sherry,
Oh, sorry.
Sherry, go back to revenue on your chart once. Oh, that's a good one. That one is an excellent one because it does show you the indication. But go back to our history once, because I think
This one?
that's pretty telling on how conservative we have always been. We have been very conservative. And if the taxpayers really looked at that, our budget crunching has always been well within reason. We haven't been, and to our own thing, which taxpayers may or may not appreciate, we have not had an opt-out. You name me a county in our district that has not had an opt-out. And they have had several. I don't care if you're talking Turner, Union, Clay, you talk anybody, they have all had opt-outs. We in Lincoln County have never had an opt-out. Well, are we going to need one? Yes, we are. But up until this point, we can look back with pride that we have been very, very, I think, judicious in taxpayer dollars and spending them wisely.
Your three new hires were possible, were planning and zoning, state's attorney, and what was the third one?
The sheriff's office.
Okay,
There's 4 total new positions requested.
okay.
I'll get with Bill.
With that, Madam Chair, thank you, Sherry, but I'll move to adjourn.
I'll second.
Commissioner Gibbon,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins.
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Landine.
Sherry, is that a copy you can make that we could have?
Of course I can.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Is that on the website, Sherry?
It's part of the agenda, so it's attached to the agenda as a PowerPoint.
What's that? Now, tonight,
I was going to give.
Could it be in a spot that's maybe more easy to find?
Yep, I bet we can do that. I will make it